My name is Margaret Ellison. I'm 69 years old. I'd say it. How would I do that? Circle. 3 scars on my body, dozens on my soul, and a story that may resemble yours. Tell me something. What should a mother do when she realizes that her own family only invites her to dinner? To laugh at her? They say that old age is the time of peace. But no one talks about the kind of war that starts when you realize you've been treated like a burden, even though you've given it your all. I don't talk about small sorrows. No, I speak of looking into the eyes of those you created and see contempt hidden behind a smile. If you've ever felt it, or fear one day, stay here with me, because in this story, I'm going to tell how, in a single night, everything I endured in silence became strength. I'm going to show how a woman who was the floor of the family can get up and surprise everyone without shouting. In the end, you will understand that silence is not weakness, and that true love is not measured by how many bills you pay, but for those who still look at you with respect. Because at that dinner, something in me died, but another part was born. But before we dive into the heart of this story, I need you to know something. That night, when my family gathered around the table, I thought I was being celebrated, but instead, I heard a sentence that cut me inside. It was said with a smile on her lips, in front of everyone, as if it were a joke. But it wasn't. It was a message, one of those who does not scream, but hurts. And there, this shit a sehan, warnai trap with the plate still hot in front, I understood that it was nothing more than a name on the bill, an uncomfortable presence sustaining their comfort. I will not tell you now what I did next. I can only say that, after that day, no one there looked at me in the same way, and I was never the same either. If you've been listening to me this far, you might understand what it's like to swallow your tears at a dinner that should be yours. So, here, now, how should you see? If this story touches your heart in any way, I ask you, leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, not as someone who presses a button, but as someone who holds the hand of someone who is about to tell something very difficult. Because today, more than ever, I need to feel that I am not alone in this. The truth is that my routine was all focused on them. I woke up early, made my coffee calmly. Read the whole newspaper, and then started the usual ritual. I sent Rachel a message asking about the boys, transferred to school, called to find out if she needed groceries. If I saw an offer of children's clothing, I would buy 2 or 3 pieces to deliver to her house in Atlanta. With Michael, it was a little different. He has always been more closed. But since losing her job in 2015 and teaming up with Claire, I've supported pretty much everything about their Greenville home. Electricity, internet, mortgage, even the streaming subscription they said was for the kids. I wanted to help. Of course, it was my son, but over time, that gesture of love became the rule. There was no longer a thank you. There was only an automatic silence, as if my support was an obligation. Even so, I was going strong. In the eyes of others, I was the perfect mother, the present grandmother. A present grandmother, the woman who won alone after Robert's death. Nay, sit calm. But only I knew how much all that emptied me inside. And to down. The truth is that my name was remembered only when the bill arrived. I remember one Saturday afternoon, right before that dinner, I went to visit Rachel by surprise. I took her a lemon cake, which she always liked when she was a child. I arrived, and she took a long time to open the gate. When he opened it, wow, he came in a cold voice. Mom, Nanny, let me know before. I have a full house inside, and now I saw two friends, the children on the tablet, and a mood, as if I had invaded. I stayed there out of politeness, drank a tea without sugar, and left with the excuse that I had an appointment. In the car, I'd say, I looked at the cake in the passenger seat. No one had touched it. I cried silently all the way back to Charleston. It is at these times that we begin to understand what we used to make a point of ignoring. The little signs were all there. The unanswered messages, the forgotten birthdays, the lunches rescheduled 1,000 times. When my older sister, Lorraine, now down, called me to ask, "How are you?" Maggie, I come out. I said it was okay, but it wasn't. I felt like a silent weight that still paid for everything. No, there's a time when we stop fooling ourselves. There is a time when the body continues to sit at the table, but the heart has already risen. How? Can I ask you a question? Have you ever had the feeling of being in everyone's life, but no one being in yours? To give, to donate, to do, and still feel invisible. If you've ever felt that, comment below with a "I've lived it" or "It's true." It will do me good to know that it's not just me in this leaky boat called silence. The worst part wasn't even the rejection. It was the way it came, disguised as normality. As if it was natural to forget about the mother, as if it was expected that I didn't want attention. All I got were short answers, long requests, and lame excuses. And as much as I tried to convince myself that it was something in my head, a paranoia of someone who aged too quickly, a mother's heart is not deceived. He feels before he understands. And mine had been hitting tight for a long time. That same week, Michael called me on air. He said that Claire had back pain and that he would not be able to afford the co-payment of the hospital. He said that she was worried about the children's health plan. I unhesitatingly transferred $1. 200. I didn't even get a God pay you. 2 days later, I saw on social media a photo of them in an expensive restaurant, celebrating the family weekend. No one called me. No, nobody mentioned me. But guess who paid for that? And yet, even with all this, I continued to be the old woman who prepared Christmas presents 3 months before, who made a list of medicines for a grandson with asthma, who prayed on my knees for a family that no longer prayed for me. And then the invitation to dinner arrived. It was supposed to be my birthday, but the way Rachel spoke was strange from the beginning. Come here on Saturday. Mom, we're going to do a simple business. Okay? No big deal. Nothing much. 7 days before, now, when you were there, October, I was already choosing clothes, fixing my hair, rehearsing in front of the mirror how not to cry if I got a handmade souvenir. I am from the time when what counts is the gesture, but something told me that this dinner was going to be different. I didn't know if it was a foolish hope or a dark foreboding, and I wanted so badly to be wrong. I really wanted this story to be just something in my tired head. But when I arrived at that house, when I saw they looked at me, it was there that it all began. It was late afternoon when I parked in front of Michael's house, there in Greenville, when I called Hapkinatu Gordy's Shilbrikai. The street was full of cars, more than I expected. For a moment, nice, even smiles. I thought, now, wow, will they prepare a bigger surprise for me? I grabbed the apple pie I had made myself, adjusted the pearl necklace, and took a deep breath before ringing the bell. Claire opened the door with a wide smile, but that smile didn't reach her eyes. Hi, Margaret, come in. The people are already there. The staff? I barely crossed the door, and I already realized. The house was full of faces I didn't know. Michael's co-workers, neighbors in the condo, a distant cousin of Claire's. Too many people. I looked for my grandchildren with my eyes. Nothing. I looked for my sister Lorraine. Neither is it. I was greeted with a glass of wine in my hand and a pat on the back, as if I were an extra in the middle of someone else's party. The pie was left on the kitchen counter. Forgotten. The music was loud. Well, the conversation's shallow. No one there knew my favorite color, my favorite dish, or the name of my first dog. It was my birthday, and I was the only one who didn't seem to have been really invited. I sat in a corner of the room, near the fireplace, while one laughed on the other side. Now, I saw when Claire pointed at me and whispered something in a friend's ear. Her friend laughed. It wasn't my head. Down. I know that kind of laughter. It's the laughter of those who think you want notice. Michael passed me with a plate of snacks and just said, "Is everything okay there, Mom?" And didn't even wait for the answer. No, well, the shame rose slowly, as if he knew he was out of place. At one point, I got up and went to the children's room. I found the two lying down, one the cowardly deception glued to the tablet. Hi, my loves. They just looked up and went back to playing. Can we play later? Now, Grandma. I smiled and said yes, but they did not return. Wow, not later, not later. And no one noticed. You know that kind of sadness that doesn't hurt all at once? That runs down the edges. Like warm water? That's what I felt. As if they were emptying me little by little, and I had nowhere to hold on. When I returned to the room, Everyone was toasting. Claire raised her glass, drew attention, and said, "Ne, I, Harboa. Let's toast to the most generous woman in South Carolina, always ready to pay for everything, but who never wanted to be a real mother to me." And he laughed. He laughed out loud. This is so now. What did he do? As if he had told a brilliant joke. No one disputed it. Some laughed along. Others just looked away. Rachel, why? My daughter pretended to be busy in the kitchen. My son, he lowered his head. Ah, and I stayed there, standing. Oh, now, Ali still did Shantakranda, alone, dead, with an empty glass in his hand and his heart full of questions. How does one get to this point? How does a mother turn into a credit card name? And more than that, what do you do when there is no longer any doubt that you are not loved there? Only used? I didn't answer. No. But the answer came, and it was silent. The question is, would you be ready to do what I did next? Because at that moment, I was, and no one saw it coming. I stood there, numb, with my face hot and my hands cold. Inside, I burst out and harked to shock so. It looked like someone had ripped out the rug I'd leaned on for years. There was no way to disguise it anymore. This was not a dinner in my honor. It was a showcase of convenience. A theater where I was just the expensive costume of the family. Claire's laughter still echoed in the corners of my head now, along with the looks that didn't defend me. I looked at Michael, waiting for a gesture. A "don't talk to my mother like that" something, but he just drank. Rachel kept fiddling with the cutlery as if it were just another Saturday. I didn't cry. I didn't make a scandal. I just took a deep breath and sat down again, watching the cake on the table. Why, it was chocolate. I hate chocolate. They knew. I ate a small slice, out of politeness, while the party went on as if nothing had happened. A couple of Michael's friends started telling funny stories about traveling. Claire laughed loudly. I wasn't there. Nobody saw it. No, nobody remembered. Oh, I could have left in the middle of the room, and maybe they would only notice if the light flickered. That's when the anger passed, and in its place, something different was born. Silence, like someone who accepts, once and for all, that the love you gave, he doesn't come back. I got up slowly. I grabbed my bag, adjusted the shoulder strap, and opened the zipper calmly. I remember the texture of the key in my hand. It was golden, heavy, with a white label that said Greenville. I also took out a brown envelope. I handed them both to Michael. Now, right in front of everyone. Adios. He held it with the face of someone who didn't understand. Claire approached with an arched eyebrow. What is this? I just looked at her and said, a return. A washing out. And I turned around. On the way to the door, I see no goodbye. I heard Michael ask, Mom, what return? I didn't answer. I just left. I got in the car, then leaned my head against the steering wheel for a few seconds, and let the air out of my lungs as if I had just dropped a 50-year-old anchor. I didn't cry, neither there, Hanold, hade chocolate one touched in nor after noon. At home, I put water to boil, nay, I'll tune shell, at water, made chamomile tea, and so on. That, on the porch, and stared at the Charleston sky, dark, silent, neon, awareness, why is it, calm, neon. The cell phone began to vibrate. I turned on airplane mode. For the first time, no one had access to me. Oh no, nobody. But what was in that envelope? And why did that key change everything the next day? You will understand. Because the real storm had not even started yet. On the envelope, one cell, I put only one sentence. So far, I've been on the ground. Now, us, in a door that closes. Along with the sentence were copies of the documents that proved that the house where Michael lived was mine. I had bought it years ago, when he said he needed to start life with dignity. I did it in his name. Yes, but with clauses of reversion and lifetime usufruct, something that almost no one reads. But I've always read everything. And the lawyer Gregory, who took care of Robert's inheritance, always reinforced, no, Margaret Wince, never sign without keeping the rain. And I kept it, but I never needed to use it. Until that night, the key was symbolic. It was what he didn't expect. And now it was too late. The next day, no, very early, I called Gregory. I said calmly, well, no, midnight. I want to start the process of repossessing the property. Legally, silently, wow. He asked if I was sure. I said I didn't know what certainty was anymore. He only knew what he was, no more. Doormat. Gregory understood. 3 hours later, the documents were ready. The notification would be delivered in person, with everything that the law allows. Michael, Claire, Didion, Inet Seal Alcanown. The boys would have 30 days to leave. No fight. Quietly. No emotional appeal. It was just justice. I spent the rest of the day organizing my things. For the first time in a long time, I realized that my house was really quiet. No calls asking for money. No, I need a favor messages. No obligation pulling me out of me. I heard myself. And do you know what I heard? A sigh that I didn't even know lived in me. I took an old notebook, sat on the porch and started writing. Not poems, nor outbursts. I began to list everything I had done for my family over the past 15 years. I wrote everything. Transfers, gifts, travel, rents, paid cards, toys, courses, consultations. I even wrote the hugs I gave without receiving them back. That night, I slept with that notebook on my lap. It was the first time I fell asleep without guilt. And I say more. William, so tired. Mercy to you, God. It was the first time I dreamed of myself, smiling. Just me, no one else. I'm here, opening my heart, telling my story without hiding anything. And if you're there, listening, feeling along with me, leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. It's not out of vanity. No, it's because I still have a lot in store to tell you. And it will do me good to know that there are people there, on the other side, feeling it too. The next day, the phone calls began. Many. They called from Michael's number. Until you would change stickers, Claire's, even the boy's cell phone. I didn't answer. Then came the messages, some angry, others pleading. There was even one that said, "Wow, is this punishment? Mom, is it revenge?" I read it and closed the phone. It was not revenge. It was a break, because those who never stop one day break down. How? And I had already gone too far. But they still didn't know the worst. They still didn't know that. By digging through my statements, I would discover something that would change everything. A betrayal hidden in digits. And what I found, it made me tremble. Oh, why so? Want to know what it was? So stay with me, because there are things that not even a mother forgives. The next morning, Osterol, with the coffee cup still steaming in my hand, I went to the office and opened the document drawer. There were the folders with all my statements. Receipts and receipts kept over the years. I've always had this habit, not out of mistrust, but out of organization. At least that's what I told myself. But that morning, there was something different, an urgency, as if my heart already knew what the eyes had not yet seen. I took one of the credit card statements I used only for emergencies and started flipping through it. There, money out, in plain letters, was a purchase of $1, 300, at an electronics store in Atlanta. I had never set foot in that store. On democracy, I continued reading. I saw another expense, $590, in a luxurious Japanese restaurant. Then, 2 plane tickets to Miami, on a weekend when I was at home, with my knee bandaged. The anger was rising slowly. My like boiling water. But what really knocked me off my feet was the name that popped up on several online purchases. Claire Ellison, my daughter-in-law's name. The card was in my name, but she used it as if it were her own. I called the bank. The attendant confirmed. When are sale carpet farms? Yes, Mrs. Margaret, you are the holder. But there are 2 additional cards linked to that number. One in Claire's name and one in Rachel's name. I thanked him. You hung up, and for a while I was just looking at nothing. The silence of the house was so dense that I could hear my heart beating inside my chest. How did I allow this? How did I let them invade me to that level? That they would take my name, my credit, my effort, and turn it into a life they never deserved? I called Gregory. I made an appointment with him on the same day. I arrived at the office and handed in the evidence. One by one, he listened to me in silence, as he always did. In the end, well, he just said, "We have everything. We can contest the debts, cancel the cards, and even open an indemnity process. But I didn't want a lawsuit. I didn't want jail. I didn't want a headline. I wanted my peace. I just asked to clear my name and cut off all access. And he did so. In 2 days, I was already free, and they, empty-handed, in the car, on the way home, I remember that I stopped at a light and saw a lady crossing the street with difficulty. Nobody helped. No one even looked. No, that scene hit me more than any invoice, because that's what happens when we get older. We become invisible. But there is one thing that no one expects from the invisible woman. Let her see everything. And now that I've seen, what was I going to do with that? How to act in the face of a betrayal of this size without losing my own dignity? Because I was going to act, and they were going to feel it, but not in the way they expected. Want to know how? So, follow me, because the next step was the hardest I've ever taken, and perhaps the most beautiful, too. In the days that followed, the phone rang like never before. Calls from Rachel, from Michael, messages from Claire, trying to justify the debts with empty phrases, full of rehearsed guilt. It was just an emergency card. No, Margaret, emergency. That was a lifetime, paid for at my expense. They called it support. I now called it abuse. But I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just cut everything. I closed joint accounts, canceled additional cards, locked authorizations. Attorney Gregory helped me with every step, firm and discreet. In less than a week, Margaret Ellison was no longer the pillar of anyone's financial life. One morning, I was having my tea on the porch when I saw the postman put a large envelope in the box. It was the official confirmation. The Greenville house legally returned to my name. Michael would have 30 days to leave. I felt a weight coming out of my chest, but along with it came something else, a deep sadness, because there is no pleasure in taking away a child's roof, even if he never built his own, even if he treated you like a bank. I wasn't happy. I was free, and these things are not the same thing. The next day, I went to the church where I used to help in the kitchen on Sundays. I hadn't been there for a long time. I went in, sat on the last bench and stood there. In silence, I saw the families, the children running down the hall, the sound of the choir rehearsing. I remembered the time when my children were little, when Robert and I came every Sunday with our hands held and our hopes aligned. It was all so different and so much simpler. It was there, that I decided something. I wasn't just going to cut. I was going to start over. And not just any way. I was going to start with myself. Inside. Oh, without scandal. Nothing young. And then I'm here. And video sobota. Without making a fuss. I was going to rebuild my peace where it should never have been destroyed. And, little by little, I started. I started with the house. I donated furniture that didn't mean anything to me anymore. I hung new paintings, made a garden with daisies and lavenders, changed the curtains, small things, nay, which for many seems silly, but for me they were a breather. Every flower I planted was, as if to say, I'm here, whoa, that's it now, still alive, Then I started walking every morning, just me, the birds and the smell of the neighborhood waking up. Gradually, I began to recognize who I was before I was a mother, wife, provider. I discovered that I liked to draw, that he took pleasure in talking to new people, that I still laughed when I was allowed. There was a day, by the way, when I stopped at a new coffee shop near East Bay Street. The cashier smiled and said, Uncle Mayfire, and then said, You have a quiet twinkle in your eye. I almost cried, because it had been so long since someone had seen me. And that's why I ask you, stay with me until the end of the story. Because what's next? It is the moment when everything turns, the moment that changed their lives, but especially mine. Michael called me days later. His voice was strange, between arrogance and fear. Wow. He said, I received some papers here. Is this serious? I said it was. He was silent for a few seconds. Then he asked, Are you really taking me out of the house? I took a deep breath. I'm not taking you out. I'm just giving back what you forgot was mine. He stuttered something, hung up. The next day, Rachel texted me, Have you gone crazy? Mom, is this punishment? I just replied, Nan, I don't know him. It's careful. Now, watch out for me. In the following days, they began to appear. First Claire, with her children, Al, pretending she was a visitor. Then Rachel, with a cake in her hands and a crooked smile. What use your story? None of them mentioned the debts, the words spoken at dinner, or the silence in previous years. They wanted to stifle with empty kindnesses what they did to the soul of those who had always loved them. But I haven't forgotten, and I didn't accept. On the third visit, Rachel blurted out, What? Michael is desperate. Mom, he doesn't know where he's going to live with the boys. I kept quiet. Then I got up, went to the closet and took out a box. Inside were all the cards I had kept, cut in half. I gave it to her. Now, Pion, you ask where I'm going to live, but he never asked where I lived inside. What else? She was silent. What else said? Eyes full of water. But he did not apologize. And I didn't ask either. They were getting a taste of emptiness itself. Wow. But the most surprising, it was yet to happen, because a simple gesture, made at the right time, would make everything fall apart for good. And they would have nowhere to run. Do you know what that gesture was? That's what you're going to find out now. It was on a cloudy Tuesday that I received Gregory's warning. The 30 days had run out, and Michael's family had not manifested itself. Neither request for extension, nor appeal, nor moved a finger to resolve the situation. He asked me if I wanted to file for judicial eviction. I said yes. No anger, was selling cow. No rush, just yes. That same day, I signed the papers and returned home with my heart beating slowly, as if each beat said, "No, you survived." It turns out that night, something inside me woke up. I went to the guest room, where I kept an old wooden box, a gift from Robert on our last wedding anniversary. Inside, there letters, photos, notes, and a blue notebook, where he wrote down dreams. One of them caught me in the face. One day, I want Maggie to visit Italy. I want to see her in a red dress, smiling on the streets of Florence. That took me apart. I sat on the floor, with the notebook on my lap, feeling the weight of the years. Now, the choices, the absences, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't cry for pain. I cried for remembrance, and out of desire. That morning, I made a decision. So calm. I was no longer going to hide behind my wounds. I was going to honor the dreams I left for later. The next day, I went to a travel agency and booked 2 tickets, one to New York, one to Florence, one way. The attendant asked me, "Are you accompanied?" I replied, "No. I'm going with the version of myself that I lost, and I want to meet again." I came home light, so light that even the wind looked different. And it's funny, you know, when we stop carrying the world of others on our backs, we discover that our own world, it also deserves space. Tell me something. Have you ever postponed your happiness because of someone? Have you ever stopped living a dream just to keep an entire family standing? If this has happened to you, comment below with a notch. I know how it is, or I understand you, because there is pain that only those who have felt it understand. In the following days, Rachel tried one last card. He said that the boys were scared. No, that Michael was going into depression, that Claire wouldn't leave the room. But none of these phrases came with a mom. Forgive me. He did not come with regret. It came with weight, with guilt disguised as affection. And I had already learned the difference. He still loved each one of them, but I didn't trust it anymore. And to love without trusting, it's like offering shelter in a homeless house. It doesn't protect anyone. I called Gregory and asked him to send the final notice of eviction. He said he would take care of everything. And I, for the first time, slept peacefully. But the story is not over yet, because something Claire did, in desperation, would put my name at risk. A final blow, cowardly and hidden. Oh, there's so much joy. That almost destroyed everything I fought to rebuild. And you will understand what it was, because there is betrayal that arrives in the mail. And this time, no, came with interest. I received the letter on a Friday morning. Manila envelope, Charlotte's stamp, Mayhard, unobitability stichicand, sender, unknown, me, proud, outrageous. I thought it was an advertisement for some health insurance company, the kind that keeps sending offers to the elderly. But when I opened it and saw the bank's timbre, my stomach turned. It is a debit notification, a personal loan in the amount of $48,000, made 2 months earlier, linked to my social security number. Wow. I read the letter 3 times. My name was there. None. My address, too. But that request, I never did. No, sir. I immediately called my manager. I explained everything. He pulled up the history and, in a few minutes, confirmed. Margaret, the order was placed online. With the correct data, there was digital authentication, electronic signature. I bored you. Well, my heart froze. It was someone with access to my documents, someone who knew how I operated, someone from the inside. Mom, it took seconds to understand. Claire, Lionel Town. I was the only one who, for years, had access to my paperwork, the one who kept saying that she took care of everything when I forgot to pay something, the one that scanned my bills, the one who knew every password that I once revealed without thinking. She had taken out a loan in my name, and he didn't even bother to hide it. I sat on the couch. His head throbbed. That was no longer just ingratitude. It was a crime. Ow. A crime against me. Against a woman who never denied anything, who carried that family on her back for more than a decade. I could have collapsed, but I got up. I went to the closet, took a blue folder with all the receipts from the past few years, and set up a meeting with Gregory the same day. I got there with steady hands. I showed everything, the movements, the dates, the statements. He listened to me carefully and said, "We are going to contest it in court. This is ideological falsehood and identity appropriation." I just shook my head. He didn't want justice with scandal. He wanted justice with silence and dignity. And that's what I asked him. Oh, no. Gregory prepared everything. The dispute of the debt, the formal complaint to the bank, and the blocking of the fraudulent account. Meanwhile, I reflected, not just about what Claire had done, but about what I had allowed. Because when we love too much, we don't notice the small abuses. You only see when the scam already comes with interest. And now I saw clearly, but he sucked no account. That woman never saw me as a mother-in-law. He saw me as a ladder that she used even when she no longer needed to climb. That weekend, the house was silent again, but this time it was not a silence of abandonment. It was a silence of strength. No, wow. I was upright, nearing, say warm, and so trout, whole, there, and ready to close that chapter once and for all. On Monday, the bank called me. Now, they confirmed that the amount would be reversed, that my name would be cleared, that the fraud was documented. I breathed a sigh of relief, but I learned that from that moment on, Claire would be called to testify. She and Michael, now, the bank had a registered IP, location, and even the electronic signature linked to her device. And that's when something unexpected happened. A new envelope arrived. This time, without a sender, a clue. Inside was a handwritten letter. We'll back to wars. I recognized the handwriting right away. It was Michael's. And what he wrote, it was like a last shot trying to reach the past. Can you imagine what a child writes after all this? Would you have opened that letter? I opened it, not once, and what I read there, it still echoes in me. But before I tell you what was written, you need to understand one last thing about the pain that only a mother feels. And I'll tell you now. The letter was simple. A single sheet, folded twice, without perfume, without affection, without weight, but with poison diluted in each line. Mom, if this is the path you have chosen, so be it, not so. Just don't say we haven't tried. You have always been generous. Yes, but he also always made sure that everyone knew that. Maybe now that you're alone, you'll realize that money isn't everything. Claire made a mistake, Mom, but you didn't have to expose anyone like that. I hope one day he understands what real family is. I read slowly, Mom. Then I reread it. I folded the sheet calmly and left it on the balcony table. That was it. A son who didn't apologize, but asked me to shut up. That I left everything as it was. For love. Love. What kind of love demands silence in the face of a fraud? What kind of son accuses his mother of exposure when he was the one who took everything from her, little by little, now, year after year? The letter said a lot, but what really hurt was what she didn't say. There was no forgive me. Wow. Not even a how are you. Nay, I know. And that's when I understood it for good. Michael no longer saw me as a mother. I saw myself as a threat, as a reflection of the guilt he didn't want to face. No, there are things that we only understand after 60. Time does not heal everything, but it show who was support Leo, and who was only leaning against it. And in my case, this revelation was painful, but necessary. So I decided to do something that perhaps only those who loved too much are capable of doing. And wished now of doing. Let go for good. No revenge. No anger. No plan. Fun. Just let go. Like someone who takes the last hook from his chest and breathes again. I took that letter and kept it in the same box where Robert's notes were. Not as a reminder of pain, but as proof that I chose not to become that. That afternoon, I called the travel agency and confirmed my flight to Florence. Are you really going alone? Oh my, Mrs. Ellison? The attendant asked again, and I smiled. Not alone. Go with me, the part of me that you have never known. I also bought a red dress, long, of light linen, ironless tau, just like what Robert dreamed of. When I tried it on in the store, I looked in the mirror, and for a second, I almost didn't recognize myself. No, because it had been a long time since I saw myself as a woman, only as a mother, caregiver, no, problem solver. But there I was, whole. If this piece of my life can become a mirror or a hug for someone, help me carry it forward. Like and subscribe here to the channel. No, this makes more difference than you think. Maybe you don't even know, but just listening to me has already given me the strength to keep telling. Days later, Mama, they delivered the final notification. The house in Greenville has been officially vacated. Gregory called me. It's all settled. Nyan, man. They left yesterday. They left the key in the mailbox. I thanked him and hung up. On the same day, I asked a cleaning and maintenance company to do a complete inspection. When I received the report, my chest tightened. No, the house was dirty, with broken furniture. No, stains on the walls. A place left with sorrow, as if it were a warning, as if to say, if it is not ours, it will not be yours with peace either, Count Leo. But what they didn't know, it's just that I was already at peace, because who had the courage to lose a living mother? He can no longer steal anything from someone awake. But one detail caught my attention in that report. A name. A clue. A hint that maybe they had done something much worse than I imagined. And that's when I decided, no, I was going to go back to that house with my own eyes, because there was one last truth hidden inside, and I needed to see it. Take it easy, firmly. And what I found, Billy, it made me take a deep breath and decide, right there, what to do with all that. Want to know what it was? So listen to what's coming next, because that's where everything changes. On Saturday morning, I grabbed the keys to the Greenville house. My town aquaborn. Put on my flat shoes, and drove slowly, like someone crossing a road of memories. At every corner of that neighborhood, a scene returned. Wow, the boys' first Christmas, the day Claire painted the porch blue and I said it looked like a doll's house. The laughter in the backyard. The Sunday barbecues. Everything so alive and so dead at the same time. When I parked in front of the house, the gate was ajar. There, I know to town. I got out of the car calmly. The garden, Nantow, once flowery, was dry. The high lawn, near Nantow, you, as I'm looking at sword was dry. The plants hanging to the ground. I went inside and took a deep breath. Told one, the city sound. The room smelled of mold and sloppiness. the sofa torn, the wall scratched with crayons, the kitchen. Ah, the kitchen. No, I am not calm. Where one day I fried dumplings for my grandchildren. Now there was an open garbage with food scraps and ants in the corner of the sink. But what caught my attention the most was the garage. The inspection report said that there were traces of recent boxes there, as if they had used the space to store something important. When I opened it, wow, I saw only a shelf with old objects, a radio, a torn suitcase, a rolled rug. But behind the carpet, there was a cardboard box, sealed with tape. I took it carefully. It was light. I took it inside and opened it on the kitchen counter. Inside, me, there were folders with copies of contracts, copies of my ID, KPF, electricity bill, now will count, and soon all on paper, and among the papers, a sheet with handwritten notes. I recognized Claire's handwriting. It was planning. Margaret, card limit available amounts, Pyro Martin. They were calculations, strategies. Wow. How to take it from me without me noticing. How to use my name without arousing fanfare. It was there, in that dirty, teary-eyed kitchen, that I understood. That was never a mistake. It was a plan. A shot of people who studied me like someone analyzing a safe. That he knew I would say yes. That he trusted too much. That he always forgave. And it is at these times that we discover that the worst pain does not come from aggression. It comes from hidden intention. Because if it was planned, it was a choice. And if it was a choice, there was no love. I swear, I wish, from the bottom of my soul, that I had discovered something else, anything else, because even betrayal on impulse we swallow, but the cold, calculated betrayal, no, this one can't be swallowed. If you're here listening to this, stay with me until the end, because, look, what still lies ahead is what showed me that real justice does not need to shout. It takes courage. I closed the box calmly. That's what I did to your mashirka. Left it in the trunk and left without looking back. The house was no longer mine, nor theirs. It was just a tomb of everything I once believed was love. When I got home, I called Gregory. I scheduled a new meeting and took the box. He heard me with a furrowed brow and said, "This is serious, very serious." I shook my head. Wow. I don't want to expose anyone, but I want to protect myself. He understood. And yeah, we made a dossier, and I found. We registered everything in a notary's office. Digital copy, now, hard copy. The bank was notified. The police, too, but in secrecy. Gregory is discreet. And that night, for the first time, I felt afraid. Not theirs, but of myself. Now, of how much I had let go. Of how much I had pretended I didn't see. The worst part of getting older. That's when you realize that you've abandoned yourself trying to keep everyone else whole. But I hadn't told the hardest part of this story yet, because it was only after that I received the most unexpected visit of all. A person I hadn't seen in years, and that he brought with him a truth that no one dared to say out loud. I'd named you. Want to know who it was? And what did she say that changed everything? So listen to me, because the next part is what no one saw coming. At the end of that week, when I thought I had seen everything I needed, I heard knocks on my door. They were firm, but not aggressive. When I opened it, I almost dropped the cup. It was my younger sister, Evelyn. We hadn't seen each other for more than 10 years. After Mom passed away, each one went her own way, and life, as it so often does, tried to put time between us. But there she was, aged, yes, but with the same eyes as our childhood. She hugged me like someone holding an old wound, and said, I had touched on them down. Forgive me for taking so long. Maggie, no, I needed to see you. I invited her in, and she took out of her purse a folded, yellowed letter. Nice. I found this among Mom's books. It was for you, but it was never delivered. My fingers trembled. It was Robert's handwriting, a letter written weeks before he left, hidden between the pages of a novel. A narrow sound. I sat with her in the living room and, with trembling hands, opened it. Maggie, if one day I'm no longer there, I want you to remember, don't let anyone mistake your generosity for obligation. Your love is too great to be used as a shield by those who just want to take advantage of it. Live for yourself. For why? Stealth. Even if it hurts. At that moment, my throat closed. Evelyn was crying, and I just hugged her. Time does not come back, but sometimes he gives it back. Pause a little bit with me here. Now, said Gano, there are memories that cross time, right? That are kept in a corner of us. And when they come back, it's as if they had never gone. Have you ever had that? Have you ever found a letter, Missal? A photo, a phrase that took you straight to a forgotten place of the heart? Tell me here in the comments. Share with me a special memory, or something that marked your story. Sometimes, sharing this heals more than we think. Evelyn spent the afternoon with me. She said that, in recent years, in recent years, she had also moved away from her children. He said he recognized my pain just by looking into my eyes. We talk about childhood. Grandma, Alma's backyard. The smell of coffee brewed in cloth. And us tell you what he says. We laughed. We cried. And when she said goodbye, she left me a gift. Once in storm. Your child. A blank notebook for you to rewrite your history. Maggie, unload your watchet. Unload your chapters. Your way gives yours. That night, I wrote on the front page, The woman who remained after the storm is not the same as the one who entered it. That's it. It's a blessing. The next day, I was called to the bank to sign the final documents of the case against Claire. When I got there, I received unexpected information. She had tried to open a new account in my name, even after everything, but it was prevented. The fraud was blocked. She knew that, and yet he tried. Despair? How? Cynicism? I do not know. What I do know is that someone was protecting her, and that someone, what? It could be closer than I imagined, and when I found out who it was, my ground shook, because it wasn't just Claire who had played dirty with me. There was one more name involved, a name that, until then, I believed could still love me. Do you know who I'm talking about? Well, that's what I'm going to tell you now, because it's here that the most painful truth appears. The name was there, printed on the report that the bank gave me, as if writing the last line of a dirty chapter. Rachel, I'll do. My daughter, my girl, my girl, the one that I generated with pain and hope, the one I cradled on fever nights, that I defended from gossipy neighbors when she got pregnant too soon, that I held in my arms when her first marriage fell apart. It was her. She had been the guarantor of the fraudulent account. She was the one who signed the electronic receipt of the most recent scam attempt. It wasn't just Claire. It was Rachel, too. My niece faltered. Well, I sat right there in the manager's office, my eyes fixed on the paper. The man in front of me asked if I needed water, but I didn't answer. I was somewhere else, in the past, remembering the day she got the pink bicycle for Christmas, from the little note she wrote to me when she was 8 years old. Mom, you are my heroine. Of the prom dress that I bought with the money from my extra shift. How? When did that girl become that? I returned home in silence. I didn't cry. I'm so sad. Not that day. I went to the mirror in the living room and stared at myself for minutes. Do you know when you no longer recognize your own reflection? I saw a tired woman. But I also saw something being born. A firmness, a certainty that is only born after the last disappointment. Rachel didn't call me. No, he didn't write to me. Now. He pretended that nothing happened, as if I didn't know, as if I were going to die, ignoring. But there was loud. In that silence of hers, I heard everything. She screamed, I don't care with each absence. That's it. It hurt more than any debt. I spent the night awake, looking at the ceiling. Thinking about everything. In Robert, in his letters, at Evelyn, coming back after so many years, in the grandchildren, who may never know who I really was. And I made a decision. I was going to end that. Everything, once and for all, but not with scandal, nor with hatred. With a gesture, a single gesture that would bring the definitive answer. The next day, I called Gregory. I said I wanted to rewrite my will. He, ha, surprised, asked if I was sure. I said, for the first time in my life, Gregory, I have. We went to the registry office that same afternoon, and there, Silmon, down, with pen in hand and soul firm, I changed everything. I removed the names of Michael, Rachel, Nehlan, Sidnikata, and Claire. I left only one beneficiary, an institution for elderly women abandoned by their families. This is where my story ends. I said, with others like me. Gregory smiled. No. Are you sure that's what you want? And I replied, I don't please say you a happy. And I replied, it's not what I want. You. That's what I deserve. No. And what they deserve, too. I returned home with the papers stored in my bag and a lightness in my chest that I hadn't felt since before I was a widow. It was as if I had, finally, Hans, come back to myself. Ow. But fate. He never lets us finish a story without one last test. And my no, onasik na down was yet to come. Nasigara Hemokstamde Hidiwas, because that night I received an unexpected call, and when I answered, the voice on the other end of the line made me freeze inside. Can you imagine who it was? Well, get ready, because what that voice asked of me, it was something I would never have expected. It was Michael's voice, but it wasn't my son's voice that I knew. It was a weak, slurred voice, noun, as one who carries more shame than courage. Mom, can you find me? Just for a few minutes. I need to talk to you. I didn't respond right away. The silence weighed so heavily between us that I heard the ticking of my wall clock like a drum. Where? Was all I could say. He pointed to a coffee shop near the old school, where he went to when he was little. That hurt me, because he knew exactly where to touch me. In memory, now. The next day, I put on a simple outfit, tied my hair up like I did when I was younger, and went. He was already there, Town, sitting in the corner, with his shoulders slumped and his eyes sunken. I no longer looked like the confident man who made fun of me at dinner. At dinner, he looked like a boy, a lost boy. When he saw me, when he saw me, he stood up, tried to smile, but couldn't. I sat down without saying anything. He began, no lie, it is talk, and a master and 65. I know what Claire did. I know Rachel too. And I know I was weak, that I let it all happen. I was silent until, he took a deep breath, but I wanted to ask you forgiveness, not by me, but for my children, so they are not to blame. And today, I have nowhere else to go. The house was sold. The blocked cards, jobs are gone. Claire left. Rachel, don't even talk to me anymore. I just wanted to know if you can help me, even if it's for a while. That hit me like a sledgehammer in the chest, because the mother part of me wanted to extend her arms, but the woman part The one who woke up after years of silence. This one wanted to get up and leave. Then I took a deep breath and said, Michael, pal, I have loved you more than myself for many years. And for that love, you taken, which seemed to no targets. I won't hate you, but I won't allow you to use me again, either. Not for a while. He lowered his eyes, swallowed hard. So, Pine, narrow, Dr. System Costello, is that it? And I said, Juan, it's not revenge. It's a consequence. We were silent for long seconds. He picked up the cup. Oh, took a sip of cold coffee. Well, down, and stood up. Goodbye, Mom. And he left. He didn't look back. I stood there with my hands crossed in my lap and my heart at peace. For the first time, I didn't bow down. I didn't give in because of guilt. I was not anyone's lifeline. It was just me. And believe me, being just me was already more than they ever allowed me to be. But when I got home, I found something he left on the porch bench. An envelope. Aha. Inside, there was a drawing made by my youngest grandson. A sun, a house, and a lady in a red dress. Written underneath, wow, in crooked letters, Grandma, dearest, I love you. And that's when it all fell apart again, because behind that broken family, there was still innocence, and I had to decide if he was going to let the past destroy their future as well. What would you do in my place? Because my next attitude, it was not what no one expected. I sat on the porch for hours, with that drawing on my lap, running my fingers through the crooked lines of that yellow and too round sun, my grandson's innocent trait, the same one I cradled in my lap so many times, while Claire said she was headless to take care of him, the same one who called me sweet grandma and asked for more cookies even after dinner. That sheet of paper, no, this all, more than 1,000 apologies from Michael, dismantled me from the inside, because there was no lie there. There was no calculation. It was just a child's love, clean love. Why, go, a love that could still be saved. I went in, put the drawing in Robert's box, and spent the whole night thinking about what to do. The next morning, I called a lawyer specializing in inheritance law and asked for guidance on donations with a restrictive clause. I wanted to create a fund in my name to guarantee the education and health of my grandchildren, and only theirs. No transfer, no parental control, no deviations. The lawyer understood what I wanted, to protect the children without giving another penny to the adults who betrayed me. He presented me with a solution. Create a trust. And that's what I did. I called Gregory, who was in charge as legal trustee. And there, can see, in that little office in Charleston, I rebuilt my inheritance. But this time, me, with awareness, with shielding, justly. There are things that we live and keep, but maybe by telling, we help another heart to breathe. enjoy this video and subscribe. And let's make this story reach those who need it. Because there are people out there living this kind of pain in silence. And silence is sometimes too heavy to carry alone. The process took a few weeks. During this time, I received 2 more messages from Michael. I didn't answer. I received an email from Rachel, dry, with an attachment of old photos. I didn't answer either. No one. The pain did not go away, but it stopped hurting all the same, because it has become a lesson. On the day the trust was approved, I bought tickets to Florence. It was my gift to myself. The red dress was already separated. Evelyn drove me to the airport. We hugged each other tightly. Oh, she whispered in my ear, Robert would be very proud of you. And I boarded, without fear, without remorse. But before the plane took off, I received one last call from my grandson's school. A call that made me rethink something that I thought was already decided. Because not everything can be solved with distance. And sometimes love demands return. Do you want to know what they told me on the phone? No. Well, then hold on tight. Because what came next made me come back. But not like before. The call came from the pedagogical advisor at Noah's school. My youngest grandson. Her voice was sweet now, but full of worry. Mrs. Nunn, I'll call. Margaret, forgive me for calling like that suddenly. But I thought it important for you to know. Noah has been drawing the lady in all the activities. She says that Grandma went on a trip because she was sad. Today, Mom, he cried at the time of reading. Mr. Lundstone, saying that you would never come back. Wonderful. At not so your car. The world turned slowly. I was sitting in the departure lounge, passport in hand, and eyes full. The advisor continued, We don't want to interfere, but we thought maybe it would be good for him to get a message, or maybe a visit. I thanked him, hung up, and stood there, watching the movement of the airport, trying to understand if it was a sign, a test, or just life reminding me that behind all the disappointments, there was still a boy who was not to blame for anything. I returned home the same day. I didn't unpack. I just dropped the suitcase on the living room floor and sat on the edge of the bed. My body was in the present, but my heart, this one, was still at the school gate, imagining Noah's face, confused, longing. The next morning, I went to school. I didn't warn anyone. I went in and asked to talk to him. When I saw him leaving the room, with his backpack on his back and his eyes swollen, I bent down. He stopped. For a second, I thought I wouldn't recognize myself, but he dropped everything and ran to my lap. Grandma, did you really come back? I held on tight. Back. I said started another Sarah. My love, I say Sarah's, but now, mice, for you, running. The guidance counselor, who's watching from afar. Leonidas smiled with her eyes, and I was there, kneeling on the floor of that school. I understood that sometimes we don't need to go back. You just need to come back with awareness. I took Noah out for ice cream after class. We talked like old friends. He told me about the drawings, the science classes, the new teacher. Man, also, pound. Shoot, also. At no time did he ask about his parents. It was as if he knew that this conversation was ours alone. On the way back, I left him at the house of a trusted neighbor. Oh, I didn't get in. I didn't see Michael. Nor Rachel. I know. I went back to my house and sat on the couch. I spent hours thinking, and it was there that I decided on something that would change everything. Again, I was going to write a letter, not to apologize, not even to attack, but to say everything I never said. Because there are words that, when we keep too much, they rot inside us. So I wrote 3 pages. Con Nisiel Nasimuna Cordisoe Ladium direct, no hurt, but with truth. And I did. On the envelope, I did not write sender. Only from a mother who learned to love herself. No, there are stories that seem to have already come to an end, but they are just preparing for the most important moment. And that's why I'm asking you, stay here with me, because what happened after that letter, it was the most surprising scene of my life. A scene that not even in my worst dreams I imagined living. Do you want to know what it was? So hold on tight, because now dinner day comes, the last one, and the most unforgettable of all. It was Rachel who called me Hal a few days after the letter. Wow. His voice trembled. As if he didn't know if he was angry or ashamed. Mom, would you agree to come to dinner here at home on Saturday? The children asked about the lady. It would just be us. I took a deep breath. I didn't ask who would be. I didn't ask for details. I just said, "I'll be there." And I hung up. I spent the next day in silence. I reviewed every memory of that old dinner. The first one, where I was mocked, diminished, treated as a nuisance at the table that I myself helped to set up. But this time, something was different. I didn't go as a mother waiting for crumbs. I went as a whole woman, owner of my own history. My own history. On Saturday, down, I put on a navy blue dress, pearl necklace that Robert gave me on our 10th anniversary, and I went. When I knocked on the door, it was Noah who opened it. He hugged me tightly. Grandma, today is a happy day. Entered. Down. Claire was in the kitchen, serving salad. I'd be Michael on the couch. Woody, Nedis Unantown. Tense on the neon. At all town. Rachel setting the table. Lunch too. The climate. It was nervousness disguised as an attempt. Sat. I watched every gesture. They wanted something. That was clear, but I was there to listen. Dinner was silent. I soon unappeared. All you could hear was the clinking of cutlery. Mom, until Rachel, Mom, with teary eyes, said, Mom, we made a mistake with you. All of us. We made a big mistake, and there is no way to erase what happened. But you are here today. It means a lot. Mom. Michael lowered his head. Claire bit her lips, and I remained silent. It was then Rachel took an envelope out of the drawer. This is the part of the sale of the Greenville house. They used his name. His history. Now, we can't fix everything, but we want you to keep it. I looked. It was a check. High, but the amount didn't tell me anything. What caught me were her eyes. For the first time. True, Wenzhou. No manipulation. No strategy. Only sadness. And maybe a little regret. It was there, at that simple table, that I understood. What I took from them was not money. It was the power to control me. It was the ground they thought they had under my feet. That's it. They would never have it again. I got up from the table, thanked. I said I forgave, not because they deserved it, but because I deserved to go light. I handed them copies of the trust, showing that the grandchildren were protected. Wow. The love I have left is for them, and that's why I still show up. Rachel cried. Claire said nothing. Michael just nodded. And before leaving, Noah gave me a note. Today was the best dinner of my life, Grandma. Now, but little did they know that the best was yet to come. Because after that dinner, unexpected news arrived in the mail, and she would change everything, including the fate of each of them. Want to know what it was? So wait, because the turnaround. There was still one last dance, 2 days after that strange and restrained dinner. Mail arrived, stamped with the seal of the Charleston District Court. It was not a subpoena, nor a charge. It was an official notification of recognition of the process. When I opened it, my heart raced. It was about the fraud complaint that Gregory had filed months earlier, and along with the letter came the report. The public prosecutor's office accepted the investigation as well-founded. The case would be taken forward. With evidence of document manipulation, misuse of identity and collusion between family members for personal financial benefit. The names were there, cold, black and white. Claire Anderson, Michael Taylor, and Rachel Taylor. That paralyzed me. I didn't expect anything else. I thought that, with the blocking of the accounts and the change of the will, everything was already resolved. But time does justice to its rhythm, and now it was coming, not by my hands, but through official channels, for the raw truth, by law. I called Gregory right away. He explained to me that the bank, after our dossier, followed up with the institutional complaint, and that the prosecutor found enough elements to open the case. Margaret, he said, with that calmness of his, you don't have to do anything now. Just wait. They will be called to testify. And if they don't confess, the process will continue. I hung up and sat on the same couch where I had cried so many times in secret. Only now, my chest didn't hurt. He was at peace. Because what I feared most, being invisible, being erased, being discredited, would no longer happen. The truth was documented, and it would be read. No, and it would be read, judged, heard through other eyes, through other mouths. And look, I didn't want to see them imprisoned, nor humiliated. It was never about revenge, but they needed to know the price of what they did. It was necessary for them to face not my pain, but the consequence of their own actions. That same day, I went to school to pick up Noah. I took him for a snack. Then we went to the playground. He looked at me with a kind of love that heals cracks that we didn't even know we had. She hugged me from behind while I watched the sunset and said, "Grandma, and now, you're my favorite place." And I smiled. Because deep down, that was what I needed. Not to be recognized by a court, but to be remembered with love by those who have not yet unlearned to love. I got home at the end of the day. I put on my apron, prepared an apple cake, as Robert liked. While the dough was rising in the oven, I sat down to write a letter. The last one that would not be sent, but that I needed to write to myself. Margaret, oh, you survived. You have been deceived, forgotten, betrayed. No, but you didn't get lost. You didn't lower yourself. You chose to love, even though you were hurt. And now, Callie, now you are free. I put the letter in the wooden box with Robert's wedding ring, along with his letters, and closed it. No. But before I went to sleep that night, I received one last message, an unknown number. A photo. In the image, Claire sitting in a waiting room, with her hands on her face, and a caption, "Well, why is this so?" She knows it's over. But is it really over? Or he still had something saved to be revealed? At the last moment, the final truth was about to knock on the door, and it would come, and it would come from where I least expected it. Claire was summoned. What? Yes, he answered for the accusations, but managed to reach a judicial agreement that avoided prison. Today, she lives alone in a small apartment in North Charleston, away from Michael, who moved to South Florida trying to start over, they say, as an app driver. Rachel, wow, after a long silence, wrote to me a real letter, not a cold email. In it, she told me that she's in therapy, trying to understand why she allowed her own greed to speak louder than love. She said she reads to her children at night now. Now that she mentions my name, that she shows old photos saying that Grandma taught all this. I haven't seen her yet, and I may not see her anytime soon. But I have no hatred, just a quiet distance. And Nadand, Ardentao, what you are, now so tired. Am fine now. I continue to live in the same house, taking care of my garden, locale, outside, writing my memories in a flowery notebook that Evelyn gave me. On Sundays, I take Noah and his little sister out for ice cream, and sometimes we sit on the porch to watch the sky change color. They don't know everything that happened, and they don't even need to know. It is enough for them to know that the love that we plant, even after a drought, can flourish again. What did I learn from all this? That we are never too old to say enough. That those who love also need to learn to love themselves, even if it means moving away, protecting themselves, remaking themselves. That forgiveness is not return. I am no God too. It is liberation. And that time, time is the quietest and fairest judge there is. He does not rush. He does not delay, but he always delivers what is deserved. I didn't lose my family. I rediscovered the part of her that is still worthy of the name. And that, for me, is worth everything. If you have followed me this far, I want to thank you with all my heart. Neld, siwa. Sometimes we think we're just telling a story, but, in fact, it is opening an old wound to let in some air. Thank you for holding my hand on this crossing. If this story touched you, leave a like for me. It's like a warm hug at the end of a cold day. Subscribe here to the channel too. It's like you say, "I'll be back for the next coffee." And I promise I'll be here waiting for you. Tell me in the comments which city you are listening to me. I want to imagine this coffee of ours spreading to the corners of this world. And it activates the bell. Oh. See? That way you don't lose when the coffee is brewed again. Don't go away yet. Wow. Listen to the next true story that will appear on the screen. Always remember, each wrinkle tells a story, and each story carries a strength. Watch the next video here on the channel with another incredible story.